Hello everyone, welcome to the Arclight Battery, your power source for all things Arclight Rumble related. Today we're going to be looking at the Alliance family and do an overview for each unit. We're going to start by looking at the leaders. Our first one is Jaina Proudmoore. She's a single target ranged damage dealer that deals elemental damage and slows her enemy's movement and attack speed when she hits them. Her leader ability is Arcane Brilliance. It increases the level of your spells by 3 while Jaina is in play. She's got 2 talents. She has Blink, where she periodically teleports away from attackers, and she has Clear Casting, which after deploying, if the next mini played is a spell, it costs 1 less, but no less than 1. Jaina is one of my favorite leaders personally. I love spell-based, slow, methodical decks in this game, and I think she's very powerful. She has a couple different ways you can build her. There are some minion builds that use spells to support your team, and then there are some decks that use spells as your main source of damage, and then just use the miniatures to back her up. She's pretty strong. I like her for both PvE and PvE, and I think she's a great leader. Next we have Maiev Shadowsong. She's a melee AoE unit that is unbound, so you can place her anywhere, and she is stealth. She costs 6 gold, but her leader ability is Master Assassin, which makes her cost be reduced by 1 for each unbound troop you play. I believe this can reduce her cost down to 1, but not to 0. Her talents are Enveloping Shadows, which casts a Smoke Bomb spell at the deployed location, stealthing nearby enemies, and Shadow Step, where she periodically teleports to a ranged attacker when hit. It doesn't say it on here, but I know that when she comes out of stealth, she does a Fan of Knives AoE attack around her. I believe it hits all units, even flying units, and then she starts meleeing, which is a cleave. Maiev's really good. I think a lot of people underestimate how good she is. There's only a couple people I know in the community that really play her. But I think she's fantastic. She's great for PvP. I think she's pretty good for PvE as well. Maybe slightly worse, but I think she's still very good. Next we have Tion. Tion is a tank, which is pretty good. There's not a lot of leaders that are tanks. He's melee, single target. He's armored, which means he takes 50% less physical damage. And he's a healer, which is his leader ability. It's called Holy Light, which heals all nearby friendly units. He only costs 4 to play, so as far as tanks go with abilities, that's a pretty solid rate. His talents are Divine Shield, which gains a magical shield at 30% health, absorbing all damage for 5 seconds. So basically a bubble, if you've ever played WoW. And then Consecrate, where you regularly consecrate the ground, dealing damage to enemies within. Lay on Hands is his 3rd talent, which isn't quite implemented into the game yet. It's just on this website because we know about it. And it's on death, automatically heal 1 nearby ally to full health. Lay on Hands could be good, could be not. It kind of depends. I think it's a little counterintuitive. His ability lets him heal nearby friendly units in an AoE. So it sounds like you want to play a lot of squad units to take advantage of that. Whereas Lay on Hands would be better if you were to, say, heal a Molten Giant or an Abomination or something big with a large health pool. A lot of people in the community really like Tion. I think he's just kind of okay. He's good in PvP, in my opinion. Like, he's just fine. I feel like he's a pretty base rate. He's not good, he's not bad. PvE, I think he's a little stronger, but still I don't think he's the best. A lot of people like to play Tion with mid-range characters, so things that cost like 3 or 4 or 5 gold, maybe even 6. I don't really think that there are a lot of units in the 5 to 6 gold category that are worth playing, but we will talk about some in these family overviews and which ones I think are good and which ones I don't think are good. So, moving on from the leaders. Once again, we'll go more in-depth on the leaders by giving build guides and different things once I've done all the family overviews, but until then, we're just going to give a brief overview of them. The first unit we have is Defias Bandit. It's a squad unit, so it comes with 2 of them. They're melee. They cost 1 gold. They're a cycle unit, which some things work off of. They're stealth when you deploy them, and they have cheap shot, so when they attack from stealth, they stun enemy units. This is a unit that a lot of people didn't really pick up on in the beginning. A lot of people kind of skipped over him, didn't really use him, but they're pretty solid. I know a couple people in the community have been really liking him for a little while, but haven't really expressed that much. So there are people who knew about him, but I think he's super solid. What makes him solid, specifically, are his talents, I think. First, you have Deadly Poison, where he just gains the poison trait. I think that's really good. For 1 gold, you get another poison unit. I feel like there are going to be certain poison strategies that work very well on certain boss fights, like raids, maybe on Nixia, things with high health pools. And then you also have Pick Lock, which earns an extra 2 gold when opening chests. I think that anything in this game that can grant you a gold advantage of any kind is fantastic. Especially one like this, where it costs 1 gold, and then if your opponent doesn't deal with it, then you get 2 extra gold from opening a chest. That's a huge spike in value for you, and even if they do get rid of it, generally the counters to that, like Chain Lightning, or an Unbound unit, where you can place it anywhere, generally those cost 2 gold anyway. So if they spend that 2 gold to get rid of your 1 gold unit, you didn't get the extra gold from opening a chest, but you got an extra gold out of them spending a more expensive unit to kill your unit. I think this is really good. I think he's fantastic in PvP. I think he has some very good uses in PvE as well. I think it's a pretty fantastic unit, and I definitely think you should look to pick them up at the start of the game if you can find them. Next we have Footmen. He kind of fits into the 5 gold cost units that I was talking about, though I think this one has some pretty niche uses and isn't completely useless. It's a tank unit, and it's a squad unit, and it's armored. It's okay. Their talents are Shield Bash, periodically stun the target for 1 second, which is pretty good when there's 4 of them, to be honest. And then Fortification, gain 30% extra empty health. I think there are some uses for Fortification, like I was saying earlier with Tyrion, how he does an AoE heal. If you start with 30% empty health, a heal from Tyrion is never wasted, because it will always heal that health pool that they're already missing. It's also pretty good with Holy Nova. We haven't talked about Holy Nova yet, but it's this spell. It's just, you put it on the map, it deals damage to enemies, and then it heals your units. So you're never wasting that sort of heal either. And in fact, one of the builds I like to play with Jaina is a support your minions build with Holy Nova and Footmen missing health. So they're not terrible, they're not amazing, but there are some niche uses for them. Also, the fact that they're squad means that you can split them up. Generally, minis will walk down one pathway and just kind of keep going down that pathway, but sometimes you can place the group in the middle or like on the either side of a line that separates which direction they go, and then you can have like 2 walking down one path and then 2 down another path, which has some niche uses. It's probably not something you want to do all the time, but I'm sure there are maps and different PvP scenarios where you would want 2 tanks in one lane and 2 tanks in another lane. Not great, not bad, but somewhere in the middle. I think it has some niche uses and gets more powerful with some sort of supporting build like a Holy Nova, Jaina type thing. Next we have Gryphon Rider, which is a 2 gold flying unit. This is one of the base units you get right at the start of the game. I think it's okay. It's not fantastic, but it's a 2 gold cheap unit that has flying, and it's cycle, which is not bad. So it's, it's okay. Its talents are pretty good. Airdrop periodically drops a potion, leveling up the first ally to touch it, which is fine. 1 level probably doesn't matter too much. I believe 1 level is 10% increased stats. So 10% is not crazy. If the 10% or the extra level gives you another hit that your unit can take before it dies, that's pretty fantastic, because it means it will also probably get off another hit in the time that it survives. Odin's Fury gives you Fury, which, if you don't know, is a stacking attack speed increase when the unit attacks, but I believe it also falls off when you're outside of combat. The unit's okay. Some builds really need a cheap flying unit, and so this can kind of take that spot. So, not great, not terrible. I think it's okay. Next, we have Harvest Golem. It's a 3-cost tank that has a unique ability called Rebirth. One-time self-resurrection, reborn at 50% life. So when it dies, it'll resurrect and become another tank again, which is pretty good, honestly. I think 3 costs for this is a pretty good rate. And his talents are pretty good. So, on death, spawn 3 angry chickens. That was in the Beast Family overview that we went through. Chickens aren't fantastic. They're good against some things, but not everything. Like AoE units, not great against them. They just kind of get one shot and don't do anything. But you know, sometimes having extra units there are pretty good, like against a Molten Giant or a tower that's not doing AoE damage. And then his second talent, Unstable Core, is on death, stun nearby enemies for 3 seconds. That's not bad considering he resurrects, so you'll get 2 uses out of it per Harvest Golem. Same with the chickens. I don't know that either of those talents is better. It probably just depends on the scenario. But I think this Golem is actually pretty solid. I wouldn't mind putting him in some teams. I think he has some pretty good uses in some scenarios. The stun is probably pretty good for PvP. I think it just depends on what type of team you're playing against, probably. If there's a lot of unbound spam at your base or a lot of small units, having that stun on nearby enemies for 3 seconds happening twice is probably a good way to slow down the game and control style decks. Next, we have Huntress. She's another 5-cost that I was talking about earlier. She's fast, so she moves quicker, and she's resistant, so she takes 50% elemental damage. If I had to choose a best 5-cost unit in this game, it would probably be Huntress. She hits hard, her attacks bounce. You know, like a glaives in WoW. You've probably seen that before if you played that game. But she throws the glaive and it bounces to additional enemies as long as they're nearby, which is, you know, pretty good. She can clear out AoE units. She's good at clearing Whelp Eggs and Onyxia. You know, she's quick, so she can get to the front lines of the team to support your tank when you need to. Her talents are Darnassian Steel, where her glaives bounce an additional 3 times. That's okay. It kind of depends on what you're doing, but generally, you probably don't need 3 additional bounces. There are some places you would use it, so it's a good talent, but it's probably not great for everything. Elven Might is her next talent, which makes her deal 50% additional damage to the initial target. Pretty good when you're, you know, not fighting giant hordes of things. So really, Darnassian Steel and Elven Might are like the yin and yang to each other. There will be scenarios where Darnassian Steel is good, and in the scenarios that they're not good, Elven Might is probably pretty good. Despite that, I think she's just okay. I think there are other ways to do what she does, probably more efficiently. I'm sure she has her uses, and there may be teams that she fits into well, but we'll just have to wait and see. Next, we have a 6-cost unit called Mountaineer. He spawns with a bear tank. So he is a ranged DPS, while his bear is a melee tank. He periodically heals his bear companion, which is not bad. But the bear only has 1400 health, which is the same as this Harvest Golem for 3 gold. So while you get some extra DPS from him, it's still 3 extra gold for a tank and support. I don't think it's very good, honestly. He has some niche uses, though, with his talents. First, you have Frenzied Spirit. When the bear or Mountaineer dies, the other gains Bloodlust. I don't think that's very good. It's just extra attack speed on already subpar units. Kind of not great. Hunter's Mark, on the other hand, marks the enemy target, where allies deal 30% additional damage to them. I think that's pretty good. I don't know if it makes him being 6 gold worth it, though. Being able to, like, Hunter's Mark an Onyxia fight, or a boss you're having troubles beating to deal 30% additional damage to them, feels pretty strong. I just don't know if it's worth 6 gold. Maybe there will be raids in the future that require one of the players to have him. I like the idea of multiplayer raids. In the launch trailer, they said this game would have multiplayer mechanics to it, where you could fight with your friends. There will probably be scenarios, if that's the case, where one player has to bring a Mountaineer, because having a Mountaineer hunter marking a single target benefits the rest of the players on your team more than not bringing it. So he'll probably have that niche use. I wouldn't look at getting him as the game begins, though. He probably won't help you out too much. Not great in PvP. Probably a niche use in PvE, I would imagine. Especially if there's multiplayer involved. But, you know, not great. Next we have the S.A.F.E pilot. I believe this is another one of your starting units. It's an unbound, 3-cost, ranged AoE elemental unit. Basically, you click a point on the map, and she flies in over the next couple seconds and crashes into the ground. That does a big AoE blast, and then she comes out of the helicopter that she crashed, and she also fires AoE shots. She's weird, because generally you just kind of like place a unit and it does its thing. Because this one flies in over a couple seconds after you place where you want it to go and then does damage, you have to time it, which isn't the biggest deal. It's not the end of the world. You just have to be good at timing it. Her talents are Gnomish Cloaking Device, where you deploy from the explosion with stealth and ambush. Ambush is where you deal, I think, double damage out of stealth on your first attack. And then her second ability is Coming in Hot, where you deploy twice as fast and burn nearby enemies. I believe burn is a flat amount of damage per second, as long as they're burning. I think this unit's pretty good. She does a lot of damage for her gold cost when you use her crash ability. Well, I mean, you have to use it, so on her explosion, when you first deploy her. And so, for that reason, I think being unbound and being able to clear things, she's pretty good. I don't think she'll get played in everything. She's just a good unit, you know? She's not Quillbore busted, but she's good enough. She does her job well, and you start the game with her. So I think she'll be in quite a few decks. I think you'll really like playing with her. Next, we have Worgen, which is a melee single target unbound stealth unit that also has ambush. So 3 gold for a unit you can place anywhere that has stealth, that deals double damage when attacking from stealth. Not bad. Talents are Lone Wolf, on deploy, grant +1 gold if no allies are in play, and Premeditation, which increases ambush damage by 50%. I never see people playing with this unit. I also don't hear people talking about it a lot, and so it wasn't really on my radar as being something that might be good until I looked at it for this video. I think it might have some niche uses in certain things. Ambush damage increased by 50% could be the difference between one-shotting a couple, or something that's a couple levels higher than you and not one-shotting that unit. So he might have some really good uses in, like, needing to get rid of an enemy quickly. But yeah, no one really uses him. I think he's a good unit. I don't think he's great. He's not bad. I just think he's kind of okay. Kind of seems to be the story of the Alliance units so far. Defias Bandits was pretty good. Other than that, everything seems just kind of good. Okay, let's go into the spells now. This is where things get good. First, we have Arcane Blast. It's a spell with Cycle that deals elemental damage. So how this works is it's kind of like the raptors from the Beast overview. You come, it cycles back to you, and it starts at 1 gold. You cast it for 1 gold, and it does a small little AoE explosion anywhere on the map. Then it's 2 gold, and it does a little more damage. And then it's 3 gold, a little more damage, then 4 gold, and it's a little more damage. You can choose to play any number of those. So you could cast the first cost spell, and then play another unit, and then Arcane Blast will cycle back into your deck. Or you could cast the 1 cost and the 2 cost, and then choose not to play anything else. So I think the spell is pretty versatile. It was overpowered for a long time, until they changed one of the talents. But now it's... I think this spell is still very good, especially in certain scenarios. I think it's very good in some decks. Outside of those specific decks, it's probably just kind of okay. Probably fine. It's not something that you want to include in everything, where it used to be that. It used to just be in every deck. But now I think it's pretty versatile, and it can do a lot. Its talents are Amplification, where sequential taps increase the radius by 1. I think that talent's pretty good. I think it has some pretty good uses, where the Arcane Power doesn't. So Arcane Power is the spell sequence starts at 3 and ends at 4. So instead of going a 1 cost, 2 cost, 3 cost, 4 cost, it starts at 3 and has the same effect as the 3 cost. It doesn't lose any power. And then it ends at 4. So you don't have to spend that extra 1 gold, then 2 gold to get to the good ranks. I think Arcane Power has some good usage, but I also think Amplification does as well. I think there are certain decks that will want to cast the first 2 tiers of Arcane Blast, and then not cast the other 2. Or at least have the option to not cast the other 2. We'll see when things go live, but I think this is a pretty good spell. I think it's one of the better ones, especially in the decks that it belongs in. Our next spell is Blizzard. It's a 4-cost duration spell. So most of the spells in this game, you cast it, and then it does its thing, and that's it. This is like an AoE on the map that deals damage over 5 seconds. So it's elemental damage, and it's frost. So frost damage slows enemy movement and attack speed. Its talents are Cold Snap, where you freeze enemy troops in place. I like that one. It's just kind of like a way to keep them in the blizzard so they don't walk out of it. I don't think it has a lot of use, but I'm sure it has some use in some things. I know it's better than no talent. And then Ice Crown is the second talent, where upon casting you summon a second blizzard spell at your base. That one is weird. So, in PvP, Unbound spam is pretty good. You can kill an enemy's base without really ever interacting with their units for the most part. And I think this was designed in order to protect against that. However, the radius spawns like right in the center of your base, and so there's only a little overlapping on the outside of where enemy units can actually stand and get hit by it, which is kind of strange. It feels like it was designed to stop Unbound spam, but the Unbound spam units can just kind of outrange it anyway if they want to. Whelps are pretty good at that. Quillboar's not, but like it's resistant anyway, so it doesn't take a lot of damage from the blizzard. There are ways to get around it. I don't know. I think it's okay. I don't think either of the talents are particularly amazing. But the spell is pretty good by itself. So, you know, there's that. I think it's pretty good in the Jaina build. And maybe in some other decks as a support to other minis. Because it slows enemy movement and attack speed. Attack speed's the big one there. So you can use it to have, or to give support to your minis that are already fighting. I think it's a good spell. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's amazing, but it's definitely not bad. It's probably a little better than middle of the road, to be honest. I think it's very good in some scenarios, but it's kind of okay in others. Okay, now for the last spell, Holy Nova. This is a spell cast anywhere on the map, deals elemental damage, and heals your people. So this is what I was talking about with like a Jaina support build with the Footmen. It's really good to do multiple things at once. So if your team of minis is fighting another team of minis, and you cast this, you're going to heal yours and damage the enemies. And so while maybe it doesn't do the most damage out of the spells, you're still gaining an advantage, not just from damaging them and lowering the enemy's health, but also raising the health of your units. So I think it's really good in a minion support style build, and I think the talents really help with that too. So there's Inner Fire, which affected allies gain armored and resist for 5 seconds. That's pretty good, especially in specific things. There are team comps that don't already have that this works pretty well in. And then there's also Renew, which applies a heal over time effect to allies. I don't know if this is accurate, but I believe it heals for the entire amount that Holy Nova originally does, just over time. And so it's like a double heal, just slightly more time involved. The third talent for this, which I know just from looking at the Discord and what they plan to implement, it's not set in stone yet, but it doubles the effectiveness against elemental minis, which is pretty solid. Double damage, double healing to elemental minis. I think there's a pretty good Jaina deck that revolves around maybe fire elemental and some other things that this will work pretty well with. And then it's just randomly better against certain enemies, which is pretty good, honestly. I think this spell's great in a lot of different things. You can use it in Tyrion builds, you can use it in Jaina builds, you can use it in Thalnos builds, which we haven't got to. Thalnos is an undead leader, and I really like him a lot. I think he's very good. But I think this spell has a lot of good uses, and I think it's pretty solid. I don't know if I would pick it up at the start of launch if you don't plan on using it, but if it's in your build, it'll definitely be worthwhile. And with that, we've covered everything in the Alliance family. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate everyone watching. I hope you're getting some info out of this that you didn't know already. And I look forward to global launch. Have a good day, everyone.